Hello, everyone. My name is Patricia Meredith, and I'm here on this beautiful fall day out on our farm near Spokane. And I just wanted to share a passage with you from my new book, Butcher, Baker, Candlestick Taker, which is available now in ebook, print, and audiobook, wherever books are sold, including through your library. So request a copy today. All right, here we go. Thomas Carew was the spitting image of his twin brother Bernard, though about 3 inches shorter, something the older brother by 2 minutes never let him forget, and 20 pounds thinner, something Thomas never let Bernard forget in return. He kept his face clean-shaven to avoid further comparison with his brother, and by this simple action seemed to chase most of the twin questions from the minds of those around him. Often people asked if his brother was Detective Carew, but hardly ever was he asked if his twin was Detective Carew. He was surprised to see the twin himself clumping across the police station and up to his desk at that moment, his heavier frame, it's all muscle, Bernard claimed, dropping onto his heels over and over again as he crossed the wooden floor. "It's a wonder your head doesn't pop off your neck with the strain you put on it every day walking like that," Thomas declared, his face still focused on the paperwork in front of him. "Didn't you go home for some of Mrs. Hill's delicious cooking?" he grimaced. He was glad he'd had lots of paperwork to keep him home from dinner tonight. He'd eat almost anything, but the current cook's food, if you could call it that, left his stomach oddly hungrier when finished. "We've got a case," Bernard said, avoiding the jibe. "And you need me to solve it?" Bernard grunted. "You're so eloquent, brother." "That's Detective Carew around the station." "Yes, sir, right you are, sir." Thomas stood with a half salute and then stood at mock attention, awaiting orders. "Give it up already. It's just another burglary. I thought you might like to join me on the case. It's been a while since we've worked together." "Yes, sir, 3 months, 16 days, 10 hours, and 42 minutes to be exact, sir." Thomas's face broke into a grin. "Of course, you know this'll cost you." "The way I see it, you'll owe me for dragging your sorry behind around with me and getting you out of desk work." "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir." Thomas grabbed his helmet before his brother could change his mind and headed for the exit. They walked up Howard to Riverside and caught the North Monroe to Cannon Hill streetcar. It was the same line they took into town every day, only this time they continued to travel south to the city limits at 29th and disembarked at the top of the South Hill. Bernard led the way down to the great iron gates that marked an otherwise unmarked private drive amongst towering pine and maple trees. Although this house might be considered out of town at the moment, it was apparent from Spokane's exponential growth that it wouldn't be long before this secluded house would have to allow for neighbors. But however many houses clustered nearby, it would never get lost amongst them. The Brobdingnagian house, for it certainly belonged in Gulliver's Land of Giants, of Miss Gladys Mitchell, greeted them at precisely 7:45. Thomas liked to pull out the magnificent Elgin pocket watch his father had left him whenever he could, keeping it pristine and in working order, mostly to remind Bernard that he'd been the one to receive the gift. 7:45, he said with a punctuating click as he closed the gold cover. Bernard grunted. He was doing that a lot more often lately. Thomas wondered if he might be coming down with something, like Cacciatore or swamp fever or something. A butler in full regalia opened the door, looking like a servant from overseas. His face was tense, but it seemed oddly to relax upon seeing the two of them, rather than vice versa, as was the more common reaction. "Good evening," Bernard said, removing his derby. "I'm Detective Carew, and this is Officer Carew. Miss Mitchell—" "Thank you for coming so quickly," the butler interrupted. "Please, follow me." Bernard glanced back at Thomas. It was clear he thought the butler was acting strangely, too. Maybe he was the burglar. But then, why relax upon seeing them rather than getting agitated? It became stranger still when the butler led them through the house, past a grand staircase, 3 pocket doors, down the servants' stairs, through a kitchen, where Thomas was momentarily overwhelmed by the best smell in the world, bacon, and out the back door, down a small slope, past an ornamental garden, a vegetable garden, a shed with chickens, and a stable, and yet the butler still kept moving at a steady, if not quick, pace out across the lawn. "Is Miss Mitchell in the stable?" Thomas finally asked. "No, sir," came the curt reply. He'd known it was no use asking. Butlers never said anything unless absolutely necessary. He'd read that somewhere in a book once. They'd walked another mile and a half, it seemed, before he realized they were coming to the back edge of the property. Against the backdrop of the forest he could see a rectangular stone building, which had been hidden from view until now by a gentle rise in the yard. Gray smoke plumes wafted out of a brick chimney, but something other than wood was burning. He couldn't quite place it. Perhaps oil or rubber? Maybe metal, seeing as outside the building he saw the pieces of an old carriage, extra wheels and rims, and long sheets of flattened steel leaning against the stone. As he stepped through the wide doorway and noted the anvil beside the brick forge, he wondered what someone like Miss Mitchell was doing out here in a blacksmith shop. Then he had his answer. She was wearing a light yellow silk thing that would have caused her legs to grab his attention first, had her head not been some 2 feet away from her body, still in shock, the mouth and eyes wide open in an eternal scream. And that's Butcher Baker Candlestick Taker. Available now in ebook, print, and audiobook. Thank you for joining me today. Have a wonderful day.